The vast emptiness of space had never felt so overwhelming to Kalen Vor as it did now. The silence pressed in from all sides, broken only by the occasional warning beep from the escape pod's failing systems. Each sound was a countdown to his inevitable end. The silver-blue skin typical of his Xylosian species had taken on a dull, ashen hue as oxygen levels continued to drop. All four of his multispectral eyes stared blankly at the pod's ceiling as he contemplated the betrayal that had brought him here. Kalen had always been considered one of the hegemony's most accomplished navigators. His ability to pinpoint locations in complex space-time fields had earned him a reputation that extended throughout the multi-species empire that controlled most of known space. It was this very skill that had landed him aboard the heavy cruiser Hegemon's Will, dispatched on a classified mission to the Dark Rim, a dangerous, largely unexplored region of space known for its anomalies and rumors of unknown species. Life support at 23% capacity, announced the pod's computer in a flat, emotionless tone. Estimated survival time, 47 standard hours. Kalen let out a bitter laugh. 47 hours to contemplate how Captain Morix, a conservative Byzantine officer who had never trusted Kalen's abilities, had deliberately left him behind on the collapsing bridge. The memory still burned fresh. The ship under sudden, unexpected attack from an unidentified force, systems failing catastrophically, and Morix's final ultimatum revealed the complete coordinates to the ancient energy signal they had been sent to investigate or be abandoned. Kalen had refused. Something about those final coordinates had struck him as wrong, potentially a trap, or perhaps related to a truth that Morix was determined to conceal. His suspicions had cost him everything. In the chaos of evacuation, he had barely managed to reach a basic escape pod before the Hegemon's Will exploded in a blinding flash of light that still haunted the back of his eyelids whenever he closed them. The escape pod drifted aimlessly through the Dark Rim, its long-range communications and main engines critically damaged. Kalen's slender fingers moved methodically over the pod's limited controls, trying once again to coax more power to the distress beacon. It was futile, he knew. Even if he could boost the signal, who would hear it out here in the emptiness of the Dark Rim? And if they did, would they be friend or foe? As his hands fell away from the controls, Kalen turned his thoughts to the reasons he had joined the hegemony in the first place. Growing up on the Xylosian homeworld, he had been captivated by the promise of exploring the unknown reaches of space, of being part of something greater than himself. The reality had proven far different, a rigid, bureaucratic empire that valued conformity over exploration, where species like the Byzantines held most of the power and viewed others as tools to be used rather than equals. "Computer, access emergency buffer memories," Kalen commanded, his voice raspy from the increasingly thin air. "Access granted. Limited ship logs and personal records available for review." Kalen scrolled through the fragmented data, searching for anything that might explain what had happened. Most of the ship's records were missing or corrupted, but his own personal logs remained intact. He found himself revisiting entries from the weeks leading up to the mission, noting inconsistencies he hadn't fully appreciated at the time. Strange coded transmissions, unusual personnel transfers, last-minute changes to mission parameters. One entry in particular caught his attention. A brief note about Captain Morix receiving encrypted orders directly from Hegemony intelligence, bypassing the normal chain of command. Kalen had thought it odd at the time, but hadn't questioned it. Now, it seemed like another piece of a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. As he continued to review the logs, the pod's short-range sensors suddenly chirped an alert. "Unidentified object approaching," the computer announced. "Configuration does not match known hegemony designs." Kalen's heart pounded in his chest as he pulled up the sensor data. The approaching object moved in an unusual manner, seeming to disregard normal physics or utilizing some form of propulsion technology he'd never encountered before. It wasn't one of the large, geometric vessels typical of hegemony design, nor did it match the organic curves of their known rivals. This was something entirely different. As the object drew closer, its true nature became clearer. It was a ship, but unlike any Kalen had ever seen. Roughly cylindrical in shape, with irregular protrusions jutting out at seemingly random intervals, it had the appearance of something cobbled together from disparate parts rather than designed as a cohesive whole. Various sections appeared to be of different ages and materials, giving it a patchwork quality that would have been deemed unacceptable by hegemony standards. Incoming scan, the computer reported flatly. Warning, defensive systems compromised. Before Kalen could respond, the pod's remaining security measures were effortlessly bypassed by whatever technology the strange ship was employing. A moment later, the communication system crackled to life with a message delivered in accented but understandable galactic standard. Escape pod, this is Captain Alara Vance of the independent vessel Nomad's Gamble. We've detected your life signs and compromised systems. Prepare for retrieval. Humans. The realization hit Kalen like a physical blow. Humans were rarely seen in hegemony space, generally confined to their small coalition of systems on the edge of known territory. The hegemony regarded them as primitive, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous, a young species that had achieved faster-than-light travel before properly maturing as a civilization. Kalen, like most hegemony citizens, had been raised on propaganda depicting humans as volatile and untrustworthy, prone to emotional outbursts and irrational behavior. And now, his life was in their hands. The pod shuddered as it was enveloped in some kind of tractor field. Through the small viewport, Kalen watched as the human ship grew larger, filling his vision with its chaos of mismatched parts and improvised engineering. A bay door opened like a maw in the side of the vessel, swallowing the escape pod whole. With a clank and a hiss, the pod settled onto the deck of what appeared to be a cargo bay. Kalen's fingers hovered over the pod's emergency release, uncertain whether to open the hatch or wait for whatever came next. Before he could decide, there was a mechanical grinding noise as unseen tools began cutting through the pod's hatch from the outside. Kalen pressed himself against the far wall, wishing for a weapon. The hatch fell away with a clatter, and several figures in mismatched environmental suits entered, their faces obscured behind visors of varying designs. The first removed her helmet, revealing a human female with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that assessed him with quick, intelligent precision. "I'm Alara Vance," she said, her voice matching the one from the communication. "Can you breathe our atmosphere, or do you need an enviro suit?" "Your atmosphere should be adequate," Kalen replied cautiously, his translator implant converting his natural Xylosian speech patterns into galactic standard. Another figure removed his helmet, revealing a pale-skinned human male with a cybernetic implant visible around one eye. He said nothing but studied Kalen with unnerving intensity. "That's Jax," Alara said, following Kalen's gaze. "Doesn't talk much, but he's the best engineer you'll find in 3 sectors. Mind telling us what a hegemony officer is doing floating alone in a damaged escape pod in the Dark Rim?" Kalen hesitated, weighing his options. These humans had saved his life, but they were still unpredictable outsiders according to everything he'd been taught. Yet what choice did he have? "My ship was attacked," he said finally. "The captain, there was a betrayal. I was left behind." Alara exchanged a glance with Jax that Kalen couldn't interpret. "The hegemony eating its own? That's interesting," she said. "And unfortunate for you. Well, you're welcome aboard the Nomad's Gamble for now, but there's no free passage. Information for rescue. That's the deal." "What kind of information?" "We'll start with who you are and what your ship was doing out here. The Dark Rim isn't exactly a tourist destination, especially for hegemony military vessels." Kalen slowly moved toward the pod's exit, his slender frame unfolding from the cramped space. Standing upright, he was slightly taller than the humans, his 4 eyes taking in the cargo bay with rapid, assessing glances. "I am Kalen Vore, navigation officer of the—" He paused, correcting himself. "Former navigation officer of the hegemony cruiser, Hegemon's Will. And you're right, we were not here on a standard patrol." Alara gestured toward a door. "Let's continue this somewhere more comfortable. You look like you could use some nutrition and proper oxygen levels." Jax, see what you can salvage from the pod systems. Might be something useful there. Kalen followed Alara through a maze of corridors that seemed to defy logical ship design. Unlike the regimented, efficiently arranged passages of hegemony vessels, the Nomad's Gamble appeared to have grown organically, with additions and modifications layered upon one another in a chaotic but somehow functional arrangement. Conduits and pipes ran exposed along walls. Junction boxes lay open with bypass circuits, and here and there, Kalen noticed technology that appeared far more advanced than the ship's overall appearance would suggest. They arrived at what Alara called the Common Room, a space that served as mess hall, meeting room, and apparently social center for the crew. Several more humans looked up as they entered, expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. "Everyone, this is Kalen," Alara announced. "He'll be our guest until we figure out what to do with him." Kalen, meet the crew, or some of them anyway. Kalen noted the diversity among them. Variations in skin tone, body modifications, and what appeared to be genetic adaptations that he hadn't expected to see among humans. One individual had distinctly elongated fingers and slightly luminescent eyes that suggested significant genetic engineering, while another displayed extensive cybernetic enhancements across much of their visible body. "I thought humans rejected genetic modification and extensive cybernetics," Kalen said, his surprise overriding his caution. A bark of laughter came from the genetically modified human. "Let me guess, hegemony propaganda? They love to paint us all as techno-primitivists afraid of playing God. Some Earth governments have restrictions, sure, but out here in the free systems, we embrace evolution, whether natural or engineered." "Sit," Alara said, indicating a chair at a central table. "Maya, get our guest something compatible with Xylosian physiology." The cybernetically enhanced human nodded and moved to a food preparation unit, returning moments later with a container of nutrient solution that, to Kalen's surprise, was properly formulated for his species' requirements. "You seem prepared for Xylosian guests," he observed, cautiously consuming the solution. "We encounter all sorts out here," Alara replied with a shrug. "It pays to be prepared. Now, about that information exchange, what was the hegemons while investigating in the Dark Rim?" Kalen considered his response carefully. "An ancient energy signature of unknown origin. I was able to partially decode coordinates leading to it. That's why I was targeted. I possess information others want." "Others like your captain?" Alara pressed. "Yes. Captain Morix believed the coordinates led to something valuable, something he didn't want to share, even with Hegemony Command. At least, that's my suspicion." "And the attack? Who hit you?" "Unknown. Not our traditional adversaries. The assault was precise, targeted critical systems specifically, almost as if they knew exactly what to hit and when." Jax entered the common room, carrying a datapad. He handed it to Alara without speaking, his cybernetic eye whirring slightly as it adjusted focus. "Jax has analyzed the data from your pod," Alara said, scanning the pad. "Interesting. The energy signature from the weapons that attacked your ship doesn't match any known faction's technology, including human." She looked up sharply. "There's something else out there, something neither the hegemony nor the human coalition knows about." Before Kalen could respond, an alarm blared throughout the ship. A voice over the intercom announced, "Captain to the bridge. Long-range sensors detecting approaching vessel. Hegemony configuration." Alara was on her feet instantly. "Secure our guest. Not in a brig. We might need his expertise." Two crew members moved to flank Kalen as Alara and Jax hurried from the room. One of them, a muscular human with intricate tattoos covering visible skin, gestured for Kalen to follow. "Looks like your friends have come looking for you," he said with a grim smile. "They're not my friends," Kalen replied firmly. "If they're who I think they are, they've come to silence me permanently." The bridge of the Nomad's Gamble was as chaotically organized as the rest of the ship, with stations arranged in what appeared to be a haphazard fashion, but which Kalen gradually realized allowed for maximum efficiency with a minimal crew. Alara stood at the center, studying a holographic display of the approaching vessel. "Hegemony Intelligence Vessel Retribution," Kalen said as he recognized the configuration. Special Task Force Division. Alara glanced at him sharply. Friend of yours? Quite the opposite. The commander is Kyra Vane, an old rival. If she's here, it confirms my suspicions about a secret faction within the hegemony. Care to share those suspicions? Alara asked, her attention divided between Kalen and the approaching threat. Not without guarantees for my safety, Kalen replied. I'm not trading one potential execution for another. Fair enough. For now, let's focus on the immediate problem. Comms, they're hailing us. A screen flickered to life, revealing the sharp features of another Xylosian. Female, with the distinctive silver-blue skin of their species, but with a hardness to her 4 eyes that made Kalen tense. Human vessel. This is Commander Kyra Vane of the Hegemony intelligence ship Retribution. You are harboring a traitor and deserter. Surrender Kalen Vor immediately, or face the consequences. Alara stepped forward, her posture relaxed but alert. Commander, this is Captain Alara Vance of the independent vessel Nomad's Gamble. We rescued a survivor from a damaged escape pod, as is our right and obligation under galactic salvage laws. If you have formal charges against this individual, I'll need to see documentation before considering your request. Kyra's eyes narrowed. This is not a negotiation, human. Kalen Vor is guilty of high treason against the hegemony. He possesses classified information that threatens security throughout this sector. Release him to our custody, or we will take him by force. Alara turned slightly, catching Kalen's eye with a pointed look. The moment of choice had arrived. Whose side was he on? Kalen stepped forward into view of the communication screen. Hello, Kyra. Still doing the dirty work for corrupt officials? Or have you moved up to giving the orders now? Kyra's expression hardened further. Kalen, I see your time with these primitives has already degraded what little loyalty you had left. I'll take pleasure in personally overseeing your execution. Captain, Kalen said to Alara, not taking his eyes off the screen, Commander Vane isn't here to arrest me. She's here to silence me permanently, just like Morix tried to do. She's part of whatever conspiracy is centered around that ancient energy signal. I believe I can help you evade her ship. Alara nodded once, decision made. Commander Vane, I'm afraid we must decline your request. Kalen Vor has requested asylum aboard this vessel, which I've granted pending full investigation of his claims. You've made a grave mistake, human, Kyra snarled. You have 5 minutes to reconsider before we open fire. The screen went dark. She means it, Kalen said. The Retribution outguns this vessel significantly. In conventional weapons, yes, Alara agreed. But the Nomad's Gamble has a few unconventional advantages. Jax, activate the experimental stealth systems. Kalen, I need everything you know about the tactical capabilities of that vessel class, and fast. Kalen moved to a secondary navigation station, quickly familiarizing himself with the human interface. The Retribution has superior firepower but limited maneuverability. Their sensor arrays are heavily shielded, but calibrated primarily for conventional propulsion signatures. If your stealth technology is as unique as I suspect, there might be vulnerabilities we can exploit. It's unique. Jack spoke for the first time, his voice unexpectedly melodious for someone so taciturn. Reverse-engineered from dark rim anomalies. Bends light and other radiation around us. Not perfect, but effective against standard hegemony sensors. There's a region of space approximately 2 light minutes from our current position, Kalen said, pulling up navigational data. A temporal spatial distortion field. Hegemony ships are trained to avoid these at all costs. Their rigid hull structures can't withstand stress. But our modular design might, Alara finished, catching on quickly. Can you plot us a course that skirts the edge of this distortion field? Something that looks like we're making a run for it, but actually puts the Retribution between us and the field. Already calculating, Kalen replied, his fingers dancing across the unfamiliar controls with increasing confidence. As the Nomad's Gamble began to move, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for a standard hegemony cruiser, Jax motioned Kalen to join him at an auxiliary station. While the captain handles evasion, Perhaps we can make use of your expertise, Jax said quietly. The data from your pod contained fragments related to the energy signal you mentioned. With your help, we might decode more. Kalen hesitated, years of hegemony loyalty briefly warring with his new reality. But the decision had already been made when he chose to help evade the retribution. He joined Jax at the station. Together, they worked to assemble the fragmented data, combining Kalen's knowledge of hegemony encryption with Jax's unconventional approach to information systems. As pieces began falling into place, a pattern emerged that neither had expected. "This isn't a weapon or a simple energy source," Kalen said, staring at the display in growing wonder. "It's a map or a gate. Coordinates to a region of space that doesn't appear on any hegemony star charts. Uncharted space beyond the Dark Rim." Jax asked, his cybernetic eye whirring as it processed the information. "More than that. This signal, it's old. Incredibly old. Possibly predating the hegemony itself. And these energy signatures, they don't conform to any known physical laws. Whatever is out there, it could fundamentally change the balance of power in the galaxy. Which explains why your former colleagues were willing to kill to control it," Jax concluded. Their conversation was interrupted by a violent shudder as the ship took a glancing hit from the Retribution's weapons. Shields holding at 62%, a crew member called out. "They're closing in, Captain." "Execute course adjustment Delta 3, Ilera ordered." "Kalen, how close are we to that distortion field?" "Approaching optimal position," Kalen replied, returning his attention to navigation. "We need to maintain this vector for approximately 47 more seconds, then execute a sharp port maneuver. Weapons target their propulsion system," Ilera commanded. "We don't need to disable them, just distract them at the critical moment." The Nomad's gamble shuddered again as it absorbed another hit, this one more direct. "Shields at 38%. "Almost there," Kalen said, his eyes fixed on the navigational display. 20 seconds. 15. "Fire countermeasures," Ilera ordered. A barrage of small projectiles erupted from the human ship, not aimed directly at the Retribution, but creating a chaotic pattern of detonations and sensor ghosts around it. "Now," Kalen called out. The Nomad's gamble executed a sharp, banking turn that would have torn a hegemony vessel apart at the seams. The Retribution, momentarily confused by the countermeasures and unable to match the human ship's maneuverability, found itself being drawn toward the edge of the temporal-spatial distortion field. "They've realized the trap," Kalen observed, watching the hegemony vessel attempt to reverse course. "But the gravitational pull is already affecting their engines." On the main screen, the Retribution fought against the invisible forces of the distortion field, its sleek form beginning to shudder as conflicting temporal-spatial stresses pulled at its rigid structure. "Hail them," Kalen said suddenly. "I want to speak to Kyra one more time." Ilera raised an eyebrow, but nodded to her communications officer. A moment later, Kyra's face appeared on screen, her features tight with fury. "Enjoy your victory while it lasts, traitor," she spat. "This changes nothing. The hegemony will hunt you to the edges of known space." "Not the hegemony, Kyra," Kalen replied calmly. "Just your faction. I know the truth now, or at least part of it. The energy signal isn't what you told Hegemony Command. It's a map to something far more significant, something your group wants exclusive control over." A flicker of surprise crossed Kyra's features before she could mask it. "You understand nothing, Kalen. Some truths are too dangerous to be widely known. Some discoveries must be controlled." "By who? You? The same people who ordered the sabotage of the Hegemons will? Was it your plan all along, Kyra, to eliminate everyone who wasn't part of your conspiracy?" The accusation hit home. Kalen could see it in the momentary widening of all four of Kyra's eyes. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked the earlier conviction. Behind her, warning alarms blared as the Retribution continued to struggle against the distortion field's pull. "You have a choice, Kyra," Kalen said. "Retreat now, while you still can, or continue this pursuit and risk destruction. But know this, whatever secrets you're trying to protect, I will uncover them. Without waiting for her response, Kalen signaled for the communication to be cut. The screen went dark, and everyone on the bridge watched as the Retribution fired its engines at maximum capacity, slowly pulling away from the distortion field's influence. "They're withdrawing," the sensor operator announced, setting course away from the dark rim toward hegemony space. A ragged cheer went up from the human crew. Alara approached Kalen, a new respect evident in her expression. "That was some impressive navigation, especially on an unfamiliar system," she said. "And that bit about them sabotaging their own ship, was that true, or just a shot in the dark?" "A theory," Kalen admitted, but her reaction confirmed it. The attack on the hegemons wasn't from an unknown third party. It was orchestrated by Kyra's faction to eliminate witnesses and create a cover story. Morix was likely part of it, but something went wrong. He was supposed to secure the complete coordinates from me before the accident, but I refused. "So what now?" Alara asked, the question hanging heavy in the air between them. The Nomad's Gamble had withdrawn to a safe distance from the distortion field, its engines humming at low power as the crew began damage assessment and repairs. In the common room, Kalen sat with Alara, Jax, and several senior crew members discussing their next moves. "The Retribution has retreated for now, but Kyra won't give up," Kalen said. "She'll report to her superiors, regroup, and come after us again, possibly with reinforcements." "Which means we need to move quickly," Alara agreed. "Jax, what progress have you made with the signal data?" Jax displayed a holographic representation of the information he and Kalen had decoded. "We've identified coordinates to a location deep in the Dark Rim, well beyond any charted territory. But there are still portions of the data we haven't been able to interpret." "It's not just coordinates," Kalen added. "There's something else embedded in the signal, some kind of message or warning perhaps. The linguistics are complex, possibly predating modern galactic standard by millennia. And you believe whatever is at these coordinates is what your hegemony friends are so desperate to control?" Alara asked. "I'm certain of it," Kalen replied. "The faction Kyra represents has been operating in secret within the hegemony for some time, I suspect. They've been searching for something, ancient technology, knowledge, power, that could shift the balance not just within the hegemony, but throughout known space. So we have a choice," Alara said, looking around at her crew. "We can try to disappear, find some remote corner of the galaxy to hide in until the heat dies down. Or we can go after the coordinates ourselves, finish Maya, the cybernetically enhanced crew member. Beat them to whatever's out there." A tense silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Finally, Jack spoke. "The Nomad's Gamble was built for discoveries like this. It's why most of us signed on in the first place." He looked at Kalen. "No offense, but the hegemony has a history of suppressing or weaponizing ancient technologies rather than understanding them." "No offense taken," Kalen replied. "That's precisely why I couldn't give Morix or Kyra what they wanted. Whatever this is, it deserves better than to become another hegemony weapon or closely guarded secret." Alara studied Kalen with a penetrating gaze. "You've helped us against your own people. You've shared information you could have kept to yourself. But trust doesn't come easy out here in the Dark Rim. If we're going to pursue this together, I need to know, are you with us, Kalenvor? Not just temporarily, not just as an alliance of convenience, but as part of this crew." The question caught Kalen off guard. He looked around at the assembled humans, diverse, adaptable, operating outside the rigid structures he had known his entire life. They had saved him when his own kind had betrayed him. They had trusted him in battle when they had every reason for suspicion. "The hegemony was my home," he said slowly, "but it was never truly a place where questions were welcome, where exploration was valued for its own sake rather than for strategic advantage. I joined because I wanted to see what lay beyond known space, to understand the mysteries of the universe." He met Alara's gaze steadily. "Yes, Captain Vance, I'm with you." Alara extended her hand in what Kalen recognized as a human gesture of agreement. He took it, feeling the warmth of her skin against his cooler Xylosian physiology, a simple touch that somehow symbolized the crossing of a boundary he had never expected to traverse. "Welcome to the crew of the Nomad's Gamble, Navigator Vor," Ilara said with a smile. "I hope you're ready for a real adventure." The days that followed were a period of adjustment and integration for Kalen. The human ship operated by principles and protocols vastly different from the rigid hierarchy of hegemony vessels. Decision-making was more collaborative. Crew members were encouraged to voice dissenting opinions, and the line between work and leisure was less sharply drawn. Kalen found himself struggling to adapt at times, but also discovered an unexpected freedom in the human approach. He worked closely with Jax to continue decoding the ancient signal while simultaneously helping to plot their course through the increasingly dangerous and unpredictable regions of the Dark Rim. The coordinates led them ever deeper into uncharted territory, where conventional navigational aids became unreliable and Kalen's intuitive understanding of space-time distortions proved invaluable. Cultural differences emerged in small, sometimes humorous ways. Humans required more frequent rest cycles than Xylosians, but could process certain toxins, like ethanol and caffeine, that would have been lethal to Kalen. They communicated with a bewildering array of nonverbal cues that his translator implant couldn't capture, leading to occasional misunderstandings that were usually resolved with good-natured explanation rather than the stern reprimands he would have expected in the hegemony. One evening, as Kalen sat in the common room attempting to make sense of a human recreational activity called poker, Ilara joined him. "How are you settling in?" she asked, dealing cards with practiced ease. "It's different," Kalen admitted, "but not in a negative way. There's a functionality to your chaos that I wouldn't have believed possible before experiencing it firsthand." Ilara laughed. "High praise from a hegemony officer. Or former officer, I should say." Indeed, Kalen examined his cards, still uncertain of their significance. "May I ask you something, Captain?" "Ilara is fine when we're off duty." "And yes, go ahead. The Nomad's Gamble. What is its true purpose?" "You mentioned searching for ancient artifacts, but there seems to be more to it than simple salvage or archaeology." Ilara was quiet for a moment, considering her response. "Let's just say we have an interest in knowledge that others would prefer to keep buried. The hegemony isn't the only power that suppresses information it deems too dangerous or destabilizing. The human coalition has its own secrets, its own forbidden archives. You're seeking these suppressed truths specifically?" "Among other things." Ilara discarded 2 cards and drew replacements. "The galaxy is full of mysteries that have been deliberately obscured, Kalen. Ancient technologies labeled as hazardous without proper study. Historical events erased from official records. Species and civilizations that vanished under circumstances too convenient to be natural. And you believe the coordinates we're following might lead to one such mystery. I believe that anything multiple factions are willing to kill for deserves to be understood rather than controlled or destroyed." She looked up from her cards, her expression serious. "That's what the Nomad's Gamble really is. A bet that understanding is better than ignorance, that knowledge freely shared is preferable to knowledge hoarded by the powerful." The conversation was interrupted by Jax's voice over the intercom. "Captain, Navigator Vor, I think we've made a breakthrough with the signal. You want to see this?" In the ship's lab, Jax had constructed a 3-dimensional holographic model representing the fully decoded signal data. What had initially appeared to be simple coordinates had expanded into something far more complex. A navigational chart overlaid with what appeared to be warnings or cautionary markers. "It's not just a location," Jax explained as they studied the hologram. "It's instructions for approaching the location safely. There are barriers, defensive systems perhaps, or natural phenomena that require specific navigational sequences to traverse." "And the linguistics?" Kalen asked, fascinated by the swirling patterns of symbols that accompanied the spatial coordinates. "Pre-hegemony, certainly," Jax replied, "possibly dating back to what some call the precursor era, the civilization theorized to have preceded all current spacefaring species." "Precursors are a myth," Kalen said automatically, repeating what he had been taught throughout his education. A convenient explanation for phenomena we don't yet understand. Is that the hegemony's official position? Alara asked with a raised eyebrow. Despite the mounting evidence, Kalen hesitated. There are inconsistencies in the official doctrine, artifacts and ruins that don't align with known historical timelines. But to suggest a single advanced civilization predating all others, not necessarily a single civilization, Jax interrupted. Perhaps a coalition similar to the hegemony, but vastly older. The important thing is whatever awaits us at these coordinates appears to be tied to this ancient past. How much longer until we reach it? Alara asked. At our current speed, 3 days, Kalen answered. Assuming we don't encounter further anomalies that force us to reroute. And assuming Kyra and her friends don't catch up to us first, Alara added grimly. Jax, increase power to the sensor array. I want maximum early warning if anything approaches. Kalen, continue working with Jax on these defensive barriers or whatever they are. If we're going to risk our lives reaching this place, I want to make sure we can actually get inside once we arrive. Over the next 3 days, the Nomad's Gamble pushed deeper into the Dark Rim. The ship encountered increasingly strange phenomena, spatial eddies that twisted light into impossible colors, temporal distortions that caused chronometers to run backward or skip forward, gravitational anomalies that required constant course corrections. Through it all, Kalen worked tirelessly alongside the human crew, his natural navigational abilities complementing their unconventional approach to space travel. Jax continued refining his interpretations of the ancient warning markers, occasionally consulting with Kalen on particularly complex spatial references. Together, they pieced together what appeared to be a sequence of approach vectors and energy frequency adjustments that would be necessary to safely reach their destination. It's like a combination lock, Jax explained to Alara during one of their regular briefings. Each barrier requires a specific sequence of maneuvers or energy emissions to pass through safely. Get it wrong and we become another mysterious disappearance in the Dark Rim, Alara finished. Grimly. Wonderful. The complexity suggests this place was meant to be found eventually, Kalen observed, but only by those with sufficient technological understanding and patience. A test, perhaps, or just good security, Alara countered. Either way, we need to get it right the first time. We won't get a second chance. As they approached the final coordinates, the ship's sensors began detecting unusual energy patterns emanating from what appeared to be empty space ahead. No visible structure, the sensor operator reported. But there's definitely something there. Energy readings off the charts, patterns unlike anything in our database. Cloaking technology? Alara suggested, looking to Kalen. He shook his head. Beyond any cloaking system I've ever encountered. This is something else entirely. He studied the readings more closely. It's as if space itself is folded somehow. The destination might exist partially in another dimensional plane. Activate the approach sequence, Alara ordered. Let's see if our ancient instructions actually work. The Nomad's Gamble adjusted its course according to the first set of decoded instructions, emitting a precise pattern of energy pulses as it moved along a seemingly arbitrary path through empty space. For several tense minutes, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a shimmer appeared before them, a ripple in the fabric of reality. Energy barrier responding, Jax reported. First sequence accepted. Moving to stage 2. They proceeded through 5 increasingly complex stages of the approach sequence, each one causing new ripples and distortions in the apparently empty space ahead. After the final sequence was completed, the view before them transformed dramatically. Where there had been nothing but empty space, a massive structure now revealed itself. A construct of impossible geometry that seemed to both exist and not exist simultaneously, parts of it fading in and out of visibility as if straddling different dimensions. It was roughly spherical in overall shape, but composed of countless interlocking components that shifted position continuously, rearranging themselves in patterns that hinted at some incomprehensible logic. By all the stars, Kalen whispered, his 4 eyes wide with astonishment. It's real. What is it? Alara asked, equally awestruck. I have no idea, Kalen admitted. Nothing in hegemony records describes anything remotely like this. As they watched, a section of the structure rearranged itself, creating what appeared to be an opening, an invitation to enter. Well, Alara said after a moment of stunned silence, we didn't come all this way just to admire it from a distance. Take us in nice and slow. All hands on alert status. The nomad's gamble moved cautiously toward the opening, sensors straining to gather data on the inexplicable structure. As they passed through the threshold, the laws of physics seemed to subtly shift. Gravity fluctuated, light behaved differently, and time itself seemed to flow at an altered pace. Inside was a vast chamber that defied conventional spatial understanding. Surfaces curved in ways that should have been impossible. Structures hung suspended without visible support. And at the center, a pulsing core of energy that shifted through colors beyond the normal visual spectrum. It's some kind of station, Alara guessed, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. A research facility, perhaps. Much more than that, Kalen said, his voice hushed with realization. If I'm interpreting these energy patterns correctly, this isn't just a structure in space. It's a nexus point, a location where multiple dimensional planes intersect. Possibly even a gateway to other regions of space far beyond the Dark Rim. A shortcut across the galaxy? Alara asked, immediately grasping the strategic implications. Potentially far more, Kalen replied. This technology, if it could be understood and replicated. He trailed off, the possibilities too vast to articulate. Jax, who had been silent as he processed the sensor data, spoke up. There's more. I'm detecting information streams, data of some kind, flowing through the structure's core. Possibly accumulated knowledge, records, or... He paused, rechecking his findings. Communication signals. This place might be actively receiving or transmitting information across vast distances, possibly to similar structures elsewhere. A network, Alara breathed. An ancient network spanning who knows how far. Before they could discuss further, the ship's proximity alarms blared. Captain, the sensor operator called out. Multiple vessels approaching rapidly. Hegemony configurations. And something else, signature unknown. The tactical display showed 3 hegemony vessels, including the Retribution, approaching from one direction. From another vector came 2 ships of unfamiliar design. Angular, predatory craft that radiated unusual energy. Signatures. They followed us, Kalen realized. Both of them. Kyra's faction and whoever attacked the Hegemons will. Looks like we've stumbled into the middle of someone else's war, Alara said grimly. Shields up, weapons ready. Jax, any way to use this structure for cover or defensive advantage? Uncertain, Jax replied, analyzing the shifting configuration of the ancient structure. Its physical arrangement is in constant flux. But there's a pattern to it. It's responding to our presence, possibly to our intentions. Our intentions? Alara echoed. I believe it's a sentient system, or at least semi-autonomous, Jax explained, designed to evaluate those who find it. And what happens if it decides it doesn't like us? One of the crew asked nervously. Before anyone could answer, a new presence made itself known, not through conventional communication channels, but seemingly directly into their minds. It wasn't exactly a voice, more an impression of concepts and emotions that somehow translated into understandable meaning. Asterisk evaluation in progress, asterisk. Asterisk multiple entities detected, asterisk. Asterisk conflict parameters recognized, asterisk. Asterisk requesting clarification, asterisk. Alara looked to Kalen and Jax in confusion. Did you both hear that? They nodded, equally perplexed. It's communicating telepathically, Kalen surmised, or using some form of technology that interfaces directly with consciousness. What does it want clarification on? Alara wondered. Asterisk purpose of approach, asterisk. Asterisk intention for nexus, asterisk. Asterisk conflict resolution parameters, asterisk. Kalen stepped forward. I think it wants to know why we're here and what we plan to do with this place, and possibly how we intend to resolve the conflict with the approaching vessels. Well, that's straightforward enough, Ilara said. We came seeking knowledge, not power. We want to understand this place, not control or weaponize it. She looked around, unsure where to direct her words. We seek understanding. We believe knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. As for the conflict, we wish to avoid it if possible, but will defend ourselves if necessary. There was a pause, as if the entity or system was processing her response. Asterisk, evaluating response, asterisk. Asterisk, analyzing neural patterns, asterisk. Asterisk, consulting historical parameters, asterisk. The approaching vessels had drawn closer, now visible through the strange distortions of the structure. They're charging weapons, the tactical officer reported tensely. Asterisk, evaluation complete, asterisk. Asterisk, first contact protocols initiated, asterisk. Asterisk, offering temporary sanctuary, asterisk. Suddenly, the structure around them shifted dramatically. The opening they had entered through sealed itself, while the internal configuration changed to envelop the nomad's gamble in what appeared to be a protective cocoon of energy and matter. On the sensors, they could see the hegemony vessels and the unknown ships had arrived, now facing off against each other with weapons armed. They can't detect us, Jax reported in amazement. The structure has completely masked our presence. Can we still see and hear them? Ilara asked. Yes, but they can't see us. It's like we've been pulled slightly out of phase with normal space-time. The communication system crackled as the ships outside began exchanging messages. Kyra's voice came through first, addressing the unknown vessels. Nexus is hegemony property by right of discovery. Your presence constitutes a territorial violation. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came in a language none of them recognized. Harsh, guttural sounds without any reference in the ship's translation database. Yet somehow, possibly through the same mechanism that had communicated with them directly, they understood the meaning. The Nexus belongs to no one. You are trespassers in forbidden space. The ancient technologies are not for lesser species to wield, depart, or be eliminated. The Vorax, Kalen whispered, recognition dawning. It has to be. The what? Ilara asked. A species mentioned only in the oldest, most restricted hegemony archives. Supposedly encountered during the early expansion era, then never seen again. They were described as highly advanced, xenophobic, and possessing technology far beyond hegemony capabilities at the time. Most officials dismissed the accounts as exaggerations or myths. Not myths after all, Jax observed dryly. Outside their protective cocoon, tensions escalated rapidly. The hegemony vessels and the Vorax ships exchanged weapons fire, their advanced weaponry creating spectacular distortions in the already strange space around the ancient structure. Asterisk, conflict escalation detected, asterisk. Asterisk, nexus stability threatened, asterisk. Asterisk, intervention protocols engaged, asterisk. Before their eyes, the structure began to emit pulses of energy that intercepted and neutralized the weapon's fire from both sides. Additional components extended outward, creating a perimeter that pushed the warring vessels away from the central structure. Asterisk, communication channels opened, asterisk. Asterisk, translating all languages, asterisk. Asterisk, initiating diplomatic interface, asterisk. A voice spoke, this time audible to all present, including the crews of the ships outside. It was neither male nor female, neither mechanical nor organic, but somehow perfectly understandable to each listener in their native language. This nexus is a repository of knowledge and a gateway between realms. It was created to be discovered when species achieved sufficient understanding to use it wisely. Your conflict demonstrates that this time has not yet arrived. On the view screen, they could see both the hegemony and Vorax ships attempting to fire their weapons again, but the energy simply dissipated harmlessly against the structure's defensive field. The Nexus will now reset its discovery protocols. Memory of its location and nature will be removed from your records and consciousness. Return when you have evolved beyond conflict over knowledge. No, Kyra's voice came over the comm system. The power of this technology belongs to those strong enough to claim it. The hegemony will not be denied. Similar protests came from the Vorex vessels, equally adamant about their right to the ancient technology. The voice from the Nexus continued, unperturbed by their objections. Those who seek power rather than understanding are precisely why these safeguards exist. Your species have potential, but are not yet ready. Inside their protective cocoon, Alara looked to Kalen and Jax in alarm. Does that include us? Are we going to forget everything too? Before either could respond, they felt the entity's attention turn toward them. Asterisk, anomaly detected asterisk. Asterisk, mixed group demonstrating cooperation asterisk. Asterisk, evaluating exception parameters asterisk. You have come together across species boundaries. The voice addressed them directly. You seek knowledge for its own sake, not for advantage over others. This is the first step toward readiness. The structure around them shifted again, and a small object materialized in the center of the bridge, a crystalline device of some kind, glowing with inner light. A seed of understanding is granted. Not the full knowledge of the Nexus, but a beginning. When you have mastered this, you may return. The path will reveal itself to those with the wisdom to follow it. Outside, the hegemony and Vorex vessels were beginning to drift away from the structure, their weapons systems offline, their communication silent. What's happening to them? Alara asked. The memory removal process has begun, the voice explained. They will recall encountering each other and engaging in conflict, but not the reason why or the existence of this place. It is a kindness preventing them from destroying themselves in pursuit of power they cannot safely wield. The protective cocoon around the nomad's gamble began to dissolve, revealing a new opening in the structure, a path leading out in a different direction for where they had entered. This passage will return you to normal space at a significant distance from this location. The others will not detect your departure. Go now, and decide wisely how to use what you have been given. As the ship moved through the new passage, the structure began to fade from visibility, folding back into the dimensional boundaries that had hidden it before their arrival. Soon, there was nothing visible but empty space, though the crystalline device remained, pulsing gently on the bridge. Did that really just happen? One of the crew asked, breaking the stunned silence. Alara picked up the crystal carefully. Apparently so, and we've been given a homework assignment. She turned to Kalen. Well, Navigator Vor, it seems our adventure is just beginning. Kalen looked at the crystal, then at the humans who had taken him in, who had trusted him when they had every reason not to, who had shown him a way of existence beyond the rigid structures of the hegemony. For the first time since his rescue, he felt a sense of genuine hope. I believe you're right, Captain, he replied, and I can't think of a crew I'd rather share it with. As the Nomad's gamble accelerated away from the site of the Nexus, leaving behind the confused hegemony and Vorex vessels, Kalen reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. Betrayed, left to die in the emptiness of space, only to be rescued by those he had been taught to consider primitive and unpredictable. Now, he was part of something potentially more significant than the hegemony had ever offered him, a genuine search for understanding rather than power. The crystal pulsed with possibilities, with futures yet to be discovered. Whatever it contained, whatever knowledge or technology or doorway to further mysteries. Kayla knew that this human crew would approach it with the right mixture of caution and curiosity, respect and daring. He had been left to die in the cold silence of space. But that silence had been broken by human voices, by the chaotic, vibrant energy of the Nomad's gamble and its crew. And in that unexpected rescue, Kalen had found not just survival, but purpose. The stars stretched before them, infinite and beckoning. And for the first time in his life, Kalen Vor was truly free to explore them. The end.